Chicago, baby. Chicago, baby.
What is up, YouTube? It is that time of the year again. Nats is coming around the corner in July, and I have for you guys the top 10 decks in Edison format, in my opinion. Just quick disclaimer, I think a lot of decks can win in top outside of this top 10 list. I think a lot of the decks in this top 10 list, even though I do have them ranked, they aren't really conclusively that much better than the other decks. And if they are better, not really better by that much. That's kind of the beauty of Edison. Any deck can win or top. So with that being said, let's get into it. So for my first deck on the list, it's an honorable mention, Dragon Turbo. The feature build I have here is by Raikoko7. He won RBET 4 Season 3 with this list. I do think this is the standard Dragon Turbo list. When people think of Dragon Turbo, it's normally something very close to this list. It's a deck that can combo out of nowhere. Future Fusion is kind of an auto win almost. It gets so much advantage with Future Fusion. And the deck can KO through Gores and Tragodia, Battle Fader with Kawakimu Drago. It just gets to set up a huge board out of nowhere, sculpt its own hand, and like kill through pretty much anything. That being said, people know it exists now. It wasn't like when the deck first debuted, people didn't really know how to play against it. People felt like the deck was like how Gigaplant and Forex were when those decks came out, very uninteractive and just kill you. But we realized you can kind of just rush this deck. And this deck also loses to deck dev. There's a lot of targets in the deck that get hurt by deck dev, loses to Floodgates. Now that the other combo decks are more popular, DD Crow is more popular, which is very good into this deck because you can hit Pot of Avarice and Magical Stone Excavation with DD Crow, which really, really hurts. That being said, the deck also is able to play mid-game. It's not like Gigavice where you can't do anything mid-game. You can easily bring out a Red MD and combo and break a board mid-game, and that can get you there a lot of times too. The deck has a really high ceiling, has a really high skill ceiling as well, which is why we only see players like Raikoko, Ghost Rider, and Hydro Pump namely have success with this deck. But I do think it's not a great time for this deck, but I wouldn't be surprised if the meta changes in the future where things like Deck Devi and Crow fade out. This deck can definitely come back. So for my number 10, I have Diva Hero. The feature build I have here is by Oscar Ruano. He won RBT LA this year with it. I think his list is great. He's kind of known as one of the best Diva Hero players in the world alongside True Hero. And he plays a more control-esque Diva Hero. He was farming PS5s with Diva Hero for a really long time. I think the dude's won 3 PS5s with Diva Hero. He knows the deck really, really well. And I really like his build because he plays Armageddon Knight and Card Trooper. I think he kind of popularized those two cards in Diva Hero. But Diva Hero, one of the problems with Diva Hero is it's kind of bricky. Like you're playing Gilman double Malicious. With Armageddon Knight and Card Trooper, you kind of have 2 1-card starters that add engine to the deck, so I really, really like that. This deck is really explosive. I don't know if people realized that this deck plays like every good card in Edison format almost. It's playing the Caius, like the Armageddon Grepher Necro Plague package that Vayu plays. It's playing Stratos. You're playing Diva, Dark Armed, Future Fusion, Miracle Fusion, Mind Control, Return. Like, I thought Vayu gets to play all these good cards. Like, Vayu gets to play Dark Arm, Burial, Return. Well, you get to play Miracle Fusion, Return, Future Fusion, Mind Control. Like, this deck's card quality is insanely high. So, yeah, I really think this deck plays all the best cards. The only problem is it is a little bricky sometimes. You lose to Oppression pretty hard. That's why I think Oscar has decided to main deck Giant Trunade and Wind Blast. And in the side deck, he has double Dust Tornado. I think that's like almost a staple in Diva Hero, either that or Royal Decree. But yeah, it does have outs or anti-meta cards that kind of hurt the deck, but I still think this deck is really, really good. All these decks that aren't in the upper top 5, in my opinion, on this list are definitely underplayed for their given power level, if that makes sense. Like, almost no one, I feel like, is playing Diva Hero at this point. And the people who have stuck with the deck do see success with this list. Or deck. So yeah, I think this deck is really, really good and underrated. Next, we have Amaryllis. This feature build I have here is Keza's Ultimate Time Wizard Sydney 2025 first place. He won that tournament with this list, and I feel like people have written off Amaryllis ever since Gigavice became a deck because they play a lot of similar cards, right? Titanial and well, Titanial, Lone Fire, Miracle Fertilizer, Mark of the Rose, etc. Like a lot of the engine is the same, but the ceiling on Gigavice is so high because Gigavice probably makes like the best turn one board possible. But this deck, people do there is a like kind of a misconception, or rather, I don't know what the right word is, but people think this deck bricks a lot. And while it can brick, you are playing 3 Titanial and 2 Amaryllis. It's not as often as people think it is. Like Gigavice, we have realized that deck bricks. That deck sometimes does nothing and you just kill them. While this deck, that doesn't really happen. There's a lot of starters, it can fight back. And the Theft build that this deck is now playing, the 3 Cyber Valley and Mark of the Roses and Mind Control, you get to take their cards and draw into more of your engine. So I feel like this build bricks even less. I don't know which build is better. I don't play Amaryllis enough. There's the Hidden Armory build and then there's this build, but I think this build has been doing more popular recently. This build is the only one that's ever won a major tournament. The other closest, I believe, was when I won Raleigh and beat Adam in the finals. Adam got second with Amaryllis with the Hidden Armory build, and I think that build is still really good. Regardless of which build you pick, they both have the same pros and cons in my opinion. And this deck is very resilient to Brain Control, Dark Armed, and Deck Devi, which are huge cards in the format right now. Is very sack resilient is what I want to say. Like you can't really get sacked if you have Titanium on board. Those cards like those don't do anything. You can't get Brain Kais, can't get randomly Dark Armed. So I think that is a really big plus side. But the other thing is this deck does have, in my opinion, a pretty subpar Blackwing matchup. It's not as bad as some people think it is. I feel like some people make it out to be like 30-70 in Blackwing's favor. While I do think it is in Blackwing's favor, it's probably like closer to something like 40-60. Shura and Bora, Armed Wing feast on Amaryllises. Kalut outs Titanial a lot easier for Blackwing than most other decks. So the advantages just aren't as there against the Blackwing matchup, but it's definitely still winnable. All right, Christia Sorn. I have Christia Sorn or Light Sorn variants in general at number 8. The feature build I have here is by Dan Rose. He won Ultimate Time Wizard Niagara in 2024, but the list I have here is actually his Orlando list, where he got top 8 in. So this list is a bit more updated. I think he added like 2-3 cards to his list, just straight up. It's a 46 card list, which is unheard of. Probably the highest amount of cards I've seen a deck top in Edison format. So that's pretty cool. This deck gets to play the best boss monsters in the game. You mill your stuff, drop Christia, drop JD. JD's a walking nuke. Christia's a walking reoccurring Vanity's Fiend that +1s. Really, I do think those two are the best boss monsters in Edison. This deck doesn't really have a super bad matchup besides random rogue stuff. I think a lot of decks, when they approach Lightsworn, it's kind of the same thing. If Lightsworn gets to play their game, it doesn't really matter what you're playing, they just blow you up. There's many free wins if you get to open stuff like Charge, Recharge, turn 1. You can get your engine going without any interaction and just drop JD or Christian turn 1, turn 2 even. It's unbelievable. And the other thing is, the biggest counter to this deck, in my opinion, is Light Imprisoning Mirror. It's like the easiest thing to side into them. And no one's really siding Light Imprisoning Mirror because the meta share of Lightsworn decks just isn't high enough. Like some people are, but it's not commonplace. So I do think this deck is very underslept. It also has a good, if you're playing Christian Sworn at least, it has a good combo matchup with 3 Herald of Orange Light. So yeah, I do think this deck is definitely underslept. I feel like people have been saying for a while, it is time for this, like it's time for this deck to shine. Because it does do well into the combo meta, it does well in pretty much everything as long as you get going. But that is the weakness of the deck as well. If you open slow, like if you go second and you don't have Charge Recharge and you just like summon a Lila, it gets bottomless, you don't get a mill. It's like a whole turn skip almost. So it can be rough, but the deck, like we've all been sacked by Lightsworn. We've seen how broken this deck is if it gets going. There's not much else to say. Okay, number 7, I have Gigavice. This build is from CJ. He got first in Swiss at the Southside Gaming Major in Florida in 2025. That was like a few months ago. And the reason why I'm featuring his build is because it's the most, from what I know at least, of Gigavice, the most recent Gigavice build that's done well. And the ratios are more in line with what people have been cooking. Like the second copy plant, I think, is going to be standard going forward. CJ introduced Damage Condenser, which is like another engine card because this deck bricks a lot, so you just want to see another copy of Lone Fire or whatever you need, essentially. So this deck, if it opens or it somehow gets to Lone Fire Supervise, that board ends up being Power Tool, Titanial, and Gigavice or Gigaplant, and that's a very, very hard board to deal with. And if you don't deal with it, they like +2, +3 next turn with the board itself. So if you don't deal with it instantly, you pretty much just lose on the spot. Just like Amaryllis is very resilient to Brain Control, Dark Arm Dragon, and Deck Dev. Like there's almost no Deck Devy targets in here. And if you do have Deck Devy, you have to preemptively flip it to hopefully hit Lone Fire Blossom, which isn't ideal. That being said, this deck, even though it does have the high ceiling in Edison probably, it is very bricky. It can be very hard to pilot. There's a lot of combo lines. You definitely have to get your reps in with this deck. I personally, like, I'm not a fan of combo decks, and the fact that this bricks a lot, I feel like you're kind of just, it's like you're playing roulette almost sometimes. Like, obviously there is skill to know the deck very well inside and out and to play around your opponent's back row, but at the end of the day, if you're not drawing well with this deck, you are not going to do well. So I think people, when this deck first came out, were very scared because like there's almost nothing you can do with Lone Fire Supervise, but now that the lists have been out and we know what to side into them, for example, Master Restrict is everywhere and it really hurts this deck. I think this deck is definitely lower on the totem pole. And with Gladiator Beast being out, Gladiator Beast really hurt this deck too. Rediari, Sekidor, Heraclinos just destroy this deck, Chariot. So there is a lot of cons with this deck now, but it is still a very, very scary deck, and I have it as number 7. Next, we have Machina. This featured build I have is Yicheng won with it at the Southside Gaming Major tournament we just talked about. So the reason I'm featuring Yicheng's build is because I'm scared as hell about this build. As a Value Turbo player, when I see 2 Crow and 3 Compulsory in the main, my eyebrows are just like, holy cow, I'm so screwed. He's even maining double Cyber Dragon, just really aggressive. There's good plays turn 1 and 2 with Cyber Dragon, Crow. And Crow also feels Avarice. Like, the deck just gets a plus very, very hard and consistently. So, yeah, I think it's the best Avarice deck in the game besides, if you count Forgs as an Avarice deck, I guess, that's probably a better Avarice deck. But when I think Avarice and Forgs is more like a combo piece, and in this deck, you're actually grinding the games out with Avarice. It has great bird matchups. I really do think this deck has an edge against Blackwing and Vayu, especially this build against Vayu. He's even siding double Kaiku and the 3rd Crow for Vayu, so just a lot of hate for Vayu. The main thing is, this deck has a hard Frog matchup, supposedly. I don't play this deck enough to really know for sure, but if you have like Gearframe Fortress up and then they go dupe block, you do kind of have a hard time answering it. If you don't have an answer immediately, the game can kind of get out of control. It's a little bricky, right? You're playing 3 Force, 3 Fortress, 3 Avarice. So you think it wouldn't be bricky because you're playing a bunch of starters, 3 Gearframe, 3 Raikou, 2 Hamster, Charge. But surprisingly, you can just like open Gearframe and just have like Gearframe Force, Avarice, and just like have like nothing really going sometimes. So yeah, it is a little bricky. And then as a machine deck, Cyber Dragon really, really hurts you. Everyone has Cyber Dragon in their side deck. At any point, if you go Gearframe Fortress and don't have an answer for Cyber Dragon, that can really, really suck. It's like in +2 on the spot. Kind of insane. But no, I think this deck is really good. Underslept. Machina has always been kind of a tier 1.5 deck. And I feel like people just should be playing this build more. I feel like ever since Yicheng won with this build, I haven't really seen it do well, but I haven't really seen people playing this build. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. Someone let me know in the comments what's going on with Machina, because I'm not following that deck enough to be fair. Okay, and now moving on to the top 5. Gladiator Beasts. So the featured build I have here is from Jake Mattern. He won RBET Vegas Day 2 with this. He also actually topped the actual SJC Edison, by the way, with Gladiator Beasts. So the dude has literally been playing the same deck for 15 years, which is freaking wild. You can play this build, or you could play the Prisma Stratos build that also won Ultimate Time Waster Providence. So there's like 2 different builds going around right now. This deck has an insane combo deck matchup, right? If the combo deck is doing nothing and setting up their combo, this deck gets to go Herb Derp Sekidor, Herb Derp Rediari, Chariot, whatever, stop the combo. So it's very, very good into combo decks. It super punches bad players. If you ever give this deck an inch, it'll take a mile. like if you misplay once and give them a free tag, it can lead into Bestiary, which could lead to Geyseris, which can lead to Chariot relooping. Like, you can't really make a mistake against this deck. The bad matchups are less prevalent. That mainly being Hero Beat. When Edison kind of first got popular, like ever since the first Ultimate Time Wizard in 2023, Hero Beat was a very, very popular deck until probably the last 12 months. Maybe more at this point, but nevertheless, that was a horrid matchup for this deck. Alias running over everything, and then if you ever answer Alias, they can chain Spark. So that was a really, really tough matchup. Absolute Zero is also insane. But now that that matchup's less prevalent, combo is more prevalent now, and this deck, people think this deck has a really bad matchup into Blackwing Vayu. I do think it's losing, but really it's probably only like 45-55. It's really not like hard losing. The main thing though is oppression. Like, this deck folds to oppression. You need the Dust Tornado. A lot of builds are playing Trap Stun. You need an out to oppression as soon as it's flipped, and it can just have awkward hands, because ideally the deck opens 2 Gladiator Beasts and like 4 back row, or like 2 Gladiator Beasts, 3 back row, and like some spell card or something, a combination of that, right? But a lot of times the deck can just draw like 4 Gladiator Beasts or like 4 or 5 back row. Can really have some awkward hands sometimes, which I do think that happens more than Gladiator Beasts would like to say it does. Could be coping on that, but or they're coping on that. Point is, the deck is a little inconsistent, is all I'm trying to say. Even though each Gladiator, it is cool though, right? Like, every Gladiator Beast is kind of like another Gladiator Beast in a sense. So when you draw one Gladiator Beast, you kind of have access to them all. So I think the deck is really cool. It is like a Swiss Army knife, just a little inconsistent, but it does great into the combo decks right now. So, and it does great into frogs. So yeah, Gladiator Beasts are definitely here to stay. I thought at first it'd be more like cyclical, like if combo is good, Gladiator Beasts are good, but then if Gladiator Beasts are good, everything else is good. But really, like Blackwing Vayu, Hero Frog, like they don't like hard beat Gladiator Beasts. So I think this deck is here to stay now. Okay, this might be a little controversial, I know, but I have Forgs at number 4. So the featured build here is the Alistair build. I'm sure everyone knows this build by now. It won Ultimate Time Wizard Birmingham, and he made a great video with Fraser explaining the deck choices, and how to side with it. This is probably the most consistent, high ceiling like combination deck. But it's the best Game 1 deck in my opinion by far in Edison format. It has the most unfair tools, right? You can like double, triple, dupe block people. You can make Colossal Armory Arm at almost any point. The only main thing or like problem it has is you have to hard draw Fishborg. But with 3 Fishborg Frog, 1-for-1, and Foolish Burial, you're essentially playing 5 copies of Fishborg. You're also playing a bunch of draw power, so you are more likely than not to see Fishborg Blaster and synchro your butt off and just kill your opponent. The problem with the deck though is there's so much side deck hate for this deck. People are afraid of this deck, rightfully so. And the whole side deck in this list, the conversion side, right? It addresses the side decks or side deck hate from other decks, but then your deck just becomes worse, right? You're not really doing the unfair stuff anymore. You're just essentially playing like a watered down Frog Monarch Dream Frog deck. So I feel like you side into a tier 1.5 deck to play around the hate cards, which I don't know. I feel like that aspect can definitely be exploited. If Alistair didn't leak the side deck, I feel like this deck would be way more scarier in the hands of like the people who made the deck, like Adam and Alistair. They would definitely just destroy people. But luckily they are nice enough to leak the list, and now people know like how to side into it. But that being said, like even though that is underexplored in my opinion, there's probably another side deck that can do better. This is probably like the hardest deck to pilot. I've seen really good players misplay with this deck all the time. And then if you're trying to win a big tournament in like a 10-11 round tournament, this deck is really hard to pilot. You're probably going to make mistakes. For me personally, I know if I sit across a Forg player, I know we're probably going to go into time, right? Everything in this deck takes forever. Like you have to search your deck a million times. Like Substitute, you have to search your deck a bunch of times. Dupe Frog, Swap Frog, search your deck a bunch of times. Foolish, 1-for-1. Morace, shuffle your deck, draw 3. Avarice, shuffle cards back in your deck, draw. Like this deck takes forever to play just naturally. So if we're going into time, or if we're even close to going to time, like I'm talking like there's 30 minutes left on the clock, we're still in game 1, which is probably going to happen. I'm going to tell you, you better hurry the heck up. Like a lot of players when they play Forgs, I feel like they're calculating. It's been a minute, you haven't done anything yet. I'm telling you, like, dude, you better hurry your butt off because this is not acceptable. especially if I know we're going in time. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of pressure on this deck as a pilot. If you're piloting this deck to play well and fast, it's just really, really hard. One thing though, someone pointed out though is, well, obviously this isn't a jab at European players at all, by any means, because I do think the Europeans are better at playing this deck than NAers. But when Alistair won Ultimate Time Wizard, and I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Ultimate Time Wizard in Europe, they do a weird format where day one is like 3 or 4 rounds, and then they play all the other rounds the next day. So you kind of get like a break. You only have to play like so many rounds each day. So it's less mental tax on your brain, I guess, if that makes sense. So it makes it easier to play is all I'm trying to say if the tournament is in that kind of format. Is that really a thing? I don't know. Just something cool that someone pointed out. So yeah, I have Forgs at number 4. Oh, then the last thing, I'm sorry. Gladiator Beast. With Gladiator Beast doing well, this deck is much harder to cope with. Like, Gladiator Beast will destroy this deck if this deck doesn't open fast. So that's another thing that I think hinders this deck right now in the meta. Okay, moving on. Surprise, surprise. Blackwings at number 3. So the feature build I have here is piloted by my sensei, Matt Kalinda. He won 2 Chicago Monthlies back-to-back with pretty much the same list. There was like a 1-2 card difference between the 2 lists. But yeah, those were like 2 80-man tournaments that he won. It's Blackwings. I'm sure if you're watching this video by now, you know Blackwings are broken. Roland's a hell of a card. They get to play Royal Oppression, Deck Devi, which are 2 of the best cards in the format. There's almost 0 bad matchups. Like, I think Machina is like really the only prevalent matchup I can think of. Apparently, like Lightsworn, Christiansworn can be bad for this deck, but I don't know if there's enough data out there to really support that. The main thing I think people don't talk about enough for Blackwings, a strength that they have is the Icarus, Kalut, Yada, Mind Games are so strong. If your opponent goes Shura set 1, there's a million things going through my head, and I can't play around all of them. If I play around Bottomless Deep Prison, I'm playing into Icarus attack. If I play around Kalut, probably playing into Icarus or Bottomless. Like, it's so hard to play around this deck. And then, like, if I want to MST or Dust heavy their back row to play around everything, it could be Yada, and then I'm just like, bro, I don't know what's happening. It's really hard to figure out. Sometimes you have to pick your poison and just go for the percentages and hope you made the right play and just hope they don't have it, even though it's like such a high % chance that they might have the other card. That being said, there are weaknesses in this list or deck. Bottomless Trap-Hole hurts the deck a lot. You go second. They apply a little amount of pressure and set 1 back row, and you're just like, man, do I really have to summon this Sirocco or Shura into this back row? Like, that sometimes really, really sucks. Concentrated Light and Royal Decree. Obviously, those are probably the 2 best cards against Blackwings. They play a lot of trap cards, and all their cards are dark. That's why in the side deck, like, Fissure has been kind of a recent introduction to Blackwing. Gets Underworld Decree, beats Concentrated Light. So I think Fissure is a really cool side deck card. The other thing is the deck can randomly be vanilla. This doesn't happen like too often. In the hands of a good player, it definitely happens much, much less. But sometimes you just see your hand, you're just like summoning 2,000, 1,800, 1,700 vanillas and just hoping it gets there when it probably won't. But yeah, that is a problem with the deck. I do think Vayu is better than Blackwings. I think more people would agree with that at this point. Deck is still very, very good. And even if Vayu is better than this deck, which I'm still not 100% sure on that statement, honestly, it's really not better by much. Like, if you like Blackwings better, you're going to find success with Blackwings. But I do have this at number 3. Vayu, you guys are going to see the next 2, but Vayu obviously has much more results than Blackwings does. And at number 2, I have Hero Frog. And I know this is going to be controversial too, because this deck, like, 3 months ago when Combo came out, was like dead. So the feature build I have here is by Michael. I can't say his last name. I'm going to butcher it. It's funny because I met the dude at Raleigh when he got 3rd. But yeah, so he won RBET Vegas 2025 day 1. Really, really nice dude. So I'm featuring his build, but also I wanted to point out that 2nd place in that tournament was all by Fitz. Shout out to Fitz, love that guy. They were both playing Mali Hero Frog. Hero Frog with Malicious in the main. And as far as I know, they didn't really collaborate on the deck. Now, if they did, then I'm just making this up. But as far as I know, they didn't. So it's interesting that they both came to the same conclusion about playing Malicious. Regardless, there's essentially 3 hero builds out right now in my head. There's the Fraser 41, A lot of people were just playing Frazier 41 variants for a really long time. And then at YCS Houston, RJ and Dirk's Hero Frog with no Dupe Frog came out. That finally got leaked. So that's a build right now. And then there's this build. So there's 3 different builds going on. One thing I want to point out, though, is that recent builds have been playing more and more Ryza. Like, this list is playing 3 Ryza. I think Frazier is only playing 1 Ryza, but I think 2 Ryza is probably the new standard going forward. Like, I would say more people are probably playing 2 Ryza than 1 at this point. But yeah, this is the most balanced Hero Frog, or most balanced Frog deck out there. The reason I have this over Forgs, the main reason I have this over Forgs is because of the balance. There's a lot of side deck cards in people's side deck right now that are hurting Forgs a lot, like Master of Restrict, right? That's probably the most popular one that people are playing for Forgs. That's everywhere. That doesn't hurt this deck as hard. Granted, it hurts the 3 Ryza build more, but if they flip Master of Restrict and this deck has Miracle Fusion, well, you're cooked. You're cooked. If you have Pulling the Rug for the Monarchs and they summon Substitute or Miracle Fusion, you're cooked. If you have Oppression for the Miracle Fusion or the Substitutes, they have a Monarch, you're cooked. So there's not really a silver bullet side deck card. That's why I think this is the most balanced Frog deck. Also, Stratos and Alias really hurt Gladiator Beast. I know this build is not playing Alias, and some people are cutting Alias. I think Fitz wasn't even maining Alias. Maybe he was. I think he sided Unifrog in Alias, though. Could be wrong. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But, like, the heroes do well into Gladiator Beast is my point. Whereas Forg's kind of just like, if the Gladiator Beast player just has Chariot, you're kind of just like folding. The cons with this deck, though, are it can randomly get blown out. Now, this doesn't happen as much as the general sentiment would think, because if you're not playing pretty much perfectly with this deck, you will get punished. Like, this deck is very unforgiving and it is hard to play, but at the same time, it's very rewarding to play. But it can randomly get blown out, right? Sometimes you just summon Swap Frog Pass and your opponent just dumps their whole hand. And you're just like, well, I can't really do anything. I can like summon 1 Monarch, and if this gets bombless, I just lose. So that can sometimes happen for sure. And combo is a bad matchup. While combo is on the downswing in my opinion, Forgs have an insanely good matchup into this deck. They can just make Colossal Armory Arm as soon as you drop a Monarch, and you don't play too much back row, so it's hard for you to like kind of answer their play. And then Gigavice, if they ever get established, well, like all your cards target besides Miracle Fusion, I guess. So it's really hard for you to break their board. And even if you're not breaking their board, it's hard. This deck has a harder time to rush down Gigavice, right? Because you're probably just hitting for 1,000, then maybe summoning Strauss and then hitting for 28. It doesn't rush you down very fast unless you have Miracle Fusion. So your Gigavice on average probably gets more turns to play the game than like another normal deck. So yeah, while I don't think it has great combo matchups, like people are adjusting, right? In this deck we see there's triple DD Crow, triple Vanity's Fiend. I know Fitz and other players now are playing Fossil Dyna even in the side deck. RJ and Dark, they're playing triple Needle Sealing in the side deck. They're even playing Solemn Judgment in the side deck. Just to have as many outs as possible. So I do think Hero Frog is adapting. And then number 1, no surprise here, Vayu Turbo. I've been playing it forever. I think it's been the best deck forever. It's the most winning deck in Edison history, I think. This is my list, but Sean Bush, aka Mercenary, he also played this exact list, except he took out 1 Grepher in the side deck and put in a Cold Wave. But it's gotten 2 first place Ultimate Time Wizards this year. I think it's the most consistent deck. You can argue this or Hero Frog is the most consistent deck in the format. I'm not going to argue with you. It's one or the other. It's the best deck to have Oppression deck, like even better than Blackwing. And the deck just has a huge sack factor. Like, everyone's seen it. Everyone's seen a bad value player play. They rip Dark Arm, they rip Return, they rip Burial, and just completely swings the game out of control. That being said, if you don't see those cards like Chaos Orc, Dark Arm, Return, Burial, Deck Dev, it can feel very fair. You're kind of just playing like a Hamster Reiko Kai's deck if you don't see those cards. And then the other thing is everyone is ready for this deck. There used to be a point where people weren't playing optimally into Raikos or like thinking the back row was a Return or playing around Dark Arms like properly. But at this point, I feel like everyone I sit across, they know what Vayu Turbo is trying to do. They know what to what they lose to. They're much more aware of what they lose to compared to other decks, in my opinion. And the lists I've seen now are. I just realized that side deck is wrong. The pulling the rug should be a Lightning Vortex in the side deck. I don't know why that's there. Haha, lol, messed up my own deck. But yeah, but regardless, I do think even though people are ready for this deck, I still think it's the best deck. There's no silver bullet card against Value Turbo. Like, in my opinion, Mind Control is probably the best card against Value Turbo if, like, you play Raikou or if you're playing a dark deck. Other than that, like, DD Crow, Transmigration Prophecy, what else is there? Like, Compulse. Like, every card that you think might be good into Value Turbo isn't really super high impact or consistent enough, in my opinion, to be, like, considered, like, actually good into Value. So even though I think even that Value is kind of solved, I don't think it's really gonna be, like, change anything. And I don't even know if it's solved. Like, we just saw Steven top 8 YCS province. He was maining double oppression. So yeah, there's still innovation to be done, I guess, in every deck. But I think Value and Blackwing at this point, they're just tweaking ratios, really. Okay, so final list and takeaways. So if you just wanted to skip to the end, that's the list. I do think the top 4 decks are kind of in a league in their own, though. I'm not gonna lie, at least for now. And then Gladiator Beast and Machina are probably in tier 1.5, even though there's a million things in tier 1.5. I guess they might be like tier 1.25 in my head. And then the other decks are like a tier below. Well, and now I do think, though, that there's a lot of decks in, like, these power levels are still really similar. Like, I think if I had to pick, like, a 12th deck, it might be, like, Zombie, Solidarity Gadgets. I can't really even think of other really decks, but, you know, there's a bunch of decks out there, and they're all similar power level. They're all good still. But yeah, so the trends I predict, like, Gladiator Beasts are doing really well right now, right? Like, they just won RBT, and then they won Ultimate Time Wizard. They're stonking. If Gladiator Beasts are stonking, that means Combo is probably not stonking, so maybe we'll see less DD Crow and Mask or Restrict in the side decks. Pulling the Rug right now is doing hot. There's more Rises, like I mentioned. Solidarity Gadgets are doing well. Forgs, if they're doing the conversion side, Pulling the Rug hits the Kaisen Breakers, Diva Hero, Machina, etc. Rug is just pretty good right now. It hits a lot of stuff. But overall, like, it's always been at this point, but just to reemphasize, Edison's meta trends are cyclical, right? Like, in the most obvious example is, like, Royal Oppression deck dev. If Royal Oppression's doing pretty well, Combo's probably not doing too well. If Royal Oppression's doing hot, maybe people will play stuff like more Blackwing, more like even Hero Beat, right? If Hero Beat ever came back, or Gladiator Beasts come back, deck devy's not good into them, and then Gladiator Beasts are back, and then they're not in combos, like, doesn't do too well, but then combo beats like, you know, Value Turbo, Hero Frog, Blackwing, so it just, like, all rotates. And I just want to say, one of my pet peeves in Edison is people always say, like, Edison is solved. People who say this, like, just go to O2 at locals all the time. Just saying. But, like, you can top with anything. Like, all these decks have done well in RBT and Ultimate Time Wizard in the past 12 months, I believe. Gladiator Beast, Dupless Hero Frog, Secret Village of the Spellcaster, Solidarity Gadgets, X-Sabers, Fish, Desolate Kuda, Blackwing, Volcanic Garden. Like, we've kind of seen a lot of decks top. I'm kind of not really surprised to see anything top anymore. The power level in Edison is so low. Like, a lot of decks can top. That's also another reason why I love this format. There's a lot of skill expression compared to other formats, and that's one thing, like, you can stand out. But the power levels are just so low in this format. Every deck is inconsistent. Like, I've probably lost to all these decks at some point. Well, actually, I haven't even played against half these decks. I'm not gonna lie, but like Value Turbo, like, is not. You can't tell me Value Turbo is gonna beat any of these decks 100-0. Like, there's just no way. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the list. If there's anything you would disagree with, or anything you want to add, or just even let me know what the 12th best deck is, because I really don't know what I put at 12th best. I'd probably just put some type of zombie variant, but I'm probably forgetting a deck. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Peace.